Chapter 620. Shalulia's pretty face turned red, and she pointed to Dustless, who was sitting in a chair, biting her thin lips. She never thought that someone would dare to talk to her like this one day. To actually want her, a celestial dragon person, to be a slave, really daring. What made Shalulia most difficult to accept was Wu Chen's aggrieved appearance, as if he had suffered a great loss and suffered great pain. Shalulia almost wanted to vomit blood. Wu Chen's reluctant look was like a thorn piercing into her heart, trampling on her arrogant self-esteem until it was worthless, leaving an impression that could never be erased. The black collar of the exclusive slave in Dustless's hand is like a stick, and a heavy blow makes her confused and confused. Even if she has a stomach full of anger, there is no place to vent it. You are a marine admiral. It is your duty to protect the celestial dragons. Shalulia shouted at Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless smiled and shrugged. I'm just a trainee admiral. If you can get Sengoku to relieve me of my duties, I'll take care of you. His indifferent look made Shalulia angry, and she felt like she had met a natural enemy. She was full of anger, but there was no suitable target to vent it. Celestial dragons will be beaten by a marine admiral, but celestial dragons beating celestial dragons is beyond the jurisdiction of the marine. What's more, Dustless himself is a celestial dragon and also a marine admiral. Even if she is unwilling, she can only endure it. Her brother was thrown into the garbage dump by Dustless. If she angered Dustless, she may be forced to become a slave. Thinking about it, Shalulia felt a chill. Is this how you marines work? Useless waste. The angry Shalulia yelled at the marines in the tent, making all the marine admirals frown and quietly extinguish their anger at the same time. The exaggerated identity of the celestial dragons made them not dare to act rashly, and could only swallow their anger. Compared to your useless older brother, I feel that he's more like a piece of trash. No, at the very least, some pieces of trash still have value, while your older brother's value can be compared to a pig. No, at the very least, a pig can be slaughtered for a full meal, but eating your older brother is more fatal than eating poison. Dustless said indifferently as he looked indifferently at Shalulia. Dustless mercilessly mocked Charles, who had fainted from anger. Sakazuki and Kuzan were afraid of the power of the celestial dragons, but he was not. Dustless had also killed a celestial dragon before, and he was still alive. You win. Every dog has its day. Just wait and see. Glancing fiercely at Dustless, Shalulia flew into a rage out of humiliation as she looked at Dustless's face. She waved her hand and gestured for her subordinates to take Chalmers, who was lying on the stretcher, away. She then turned around and left without hesitation. Being in the same room as Dustless might shorten his life by 10 years. Sakazuki, who did it? Daring to attack a celestial dragon. Touching his smooth chin, Dustless's eyes lit up with curiosity. The one who attacked the celestial dragons was either a hothead like Luffy or a top expert comparable to an admiral. At the very least, he was extremely conceited about his own strength. He thought that even if he was faced with the pursuit of a marine admiral, he would be able to retreat safely. Sakazuki's expression was stiff, and his hoarse voice was a little embarrassed. When we came, the group had already run away. We don't know who did it for the time being. Dustless nodded, indicating that he could understand. The marine headquarters was some distance away from the Sabaody archipelago. When they arrived, the group of pirates had already fled in a hurry. As for the idiot Chalmers, he didn't even see who it was before he was hit on the spot and fainted. About half an hour later, Sakazuki explained the cause of the matter. Chalmers and a pirate had a dispute over the devil fruit. Compared with the celestial dragons, the pirate naturally couldn't fight. As a result, he could only grab the devil fruit that Chalmers spent hundreds of millions of berries to buy. It was said that the devil fruit at the auction belongs to the Paramecia system and can treat various diseases of the human body. But there are many famous pirates on the island, and there are many with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. Kuzan said with a hint of eagerness to try. The same is true for Sakazuki and other marines. Do as you like. Remember to catch all the pirates. I won't accompany you. With a wave of his hand, Dustless gave the hard work to Sakazuki and Kuzan. He was not interested in those minions. Akainu and others looked at each other and didn't talk nonsense. They left the tent. About a few minutes later, the ground suddenly throbbed and trembled slightly. Dustless, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and asked softly, What's the matter, White Zetsu? White Zetsu's clones are all over the world's islands. Wherever people live, there are traces of White Zetsu, and the Sabaody archipelago is no exception. The pirate who stole the devil fruit from the celestial dragons is Green Pepper's subordinate. It seems that he wants to use that fruit to cure Green Pepper's bald head. The whole island is secretly full of White Zetsu's clones, and it's easy to get information. Boring. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. It's just Green Pepper. In his heyday, his bounty is only more than 500 million berries. Even if his bald head is cured, it is estimated that his strength is about the level of an admiral. In addition, there are other pirates. By the way, Law, that kid seems to be in the Sabaody archipelago. White Zetsu said as he thought of the childish figure. Dustless's precise eyes suddenly flashed with interest, and he asked in a deep voice, "How is that kid's strength now? Is he capable of performing the ultimate surgery?" White Zetsu shook his head. He really doesn't know. Anyway, Law has made rapid progress over the years. Almost all the people who fought with him were cruelly beheaded by him. Among them, there are some pirates with more than 100 million bounties. Corazone's death left an unforgettable impression on Law, which is also the source and motivation for his continuous progress. Chapter 621. With the arrival of Dustless, Marines, who had only blocked the entire island, suddenly became rampant and turned from defense to active attack. For a time, the entire Sabaody archipelago became chaotic. The Marines from all directions rushed into the depths of the island like hungry wolves, and the chickens and dogs were restless. Pirates and Marines are two natural enemies. When they get together, they can only fight. If they don't fight to the death, it will be difficult for both sides to calm down. The hatred passed down from generation to generation has been settled for a long time. It really can't be resolved. Above the giant mangrove in the Sabaody archipelago, Dustless and White Zetsu stood on the branches and looked down at the battlefield in the distance. White Zetsu couldn't help but sigh. The product of yin-yang release is surprisingly sentimental. Turning his head, Dustless faintly said, "The person who created White Zetsu is him." White Zetsu just smiled. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. White Zetsu has no scruples. He knows Dustless's temperament and will not make a big fuss over such a trivial matter. The implication is that the sentimental character is inherited from Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at White Zetsu indifferently, and his calm tone was emotionless. "I haven't seen you for a while. I didn't expect you to have a sharp tongue." "Hey, this is also inherited from you." White Zetsu grinned. Everything he has was given to him by Dustless. His character and hidden skills were all inherited from Dustless. It is another portrayal of Dustless. There seemed to be two little mice moving below. His eyes drooped down and scanned the pirates below. Dustless's body flashed with photons and then turned into a straight beam of light roaring down. Boom, boom, boom. The earth was suddenly hit by a fierce impact, and it trembled fiercely. The surrounding ground was lifted up by tens of centimeters in an instant, and then a huge fire was swept up out of thin air. The fire was everywhere, and it was full of a burnt smell, which was nauseating. Looking closely, it turned out to be the corpses of the pirates and a large deep pit. When doctors face patients on the operating table, they are very calm. It's rare to see a doctor who treats patients while panting like you. Dustless said as he turned his head and looked at the young figure wearing a hat. He was wearing a fluffy winter fur hat with leopard spots. His eyes had dark eye bags and two small golden earrings on each ear. It was Trafalgar Law. Hee hee. I'm sorry, but I'm a quack. I only know how to kill people. Saving people is not my specialty, especially when it's the guy who almost killed me. Law's forehead was sweating, and beads of sweat kept dripping down. At this moment, the clothes on his upper body were burned. He stared at Dustless warily. His eyes were shining from time to time, and his face was ferocious. It was clear that he had become much stronger after wandering alone for so many years. Under the shadow of Corazone's death, he had trained day and night to achieve his current results. Did you avoid the range of the light-speed kick? Turning around and putting his hands in his trouser pockets, Dustless said lazily, "If I were you, I would run away quickly. Staying here is almost certain death. Or do you dare to stand here calmly because you think you have the ability to face the strength of a Marine Admiral alone?" His eyes were fixed on Law. Compared with the original kid, Law has grown up a lot. He is 15 or 16 years old and has also inherited the abnormal physique of the world's humans. At a young age, he is taller than Dustless, who is nearly 1.8 meters tall. Running away is a stupid thing that only an idiot would do. Under your speed, running away is meaningless. It's better to keep your strength and fight. Luo said resolutely as his torch-like eyes locked onto Wu Chen. As a pirate, he naturally has an understanding of the top fighting power of the marine. Their speed is enough to keep pace with the speed of light. Escaping is just a fantasy. Instead of that, it's better to fight to the death with all his strength. You're smart, but in my eyes, you're still stupid. Playing a game of hide-and-seek may give you a chance to live. Dustless chuckled. He just regarded Law as a clown. Now he is still too far away. Room. Looking at the opportunity, Law released the ability of the fruit and created a transparent hemispherical space. The transparent space was not quite large. In an instant, it wrapped Dustless's whole body and completely isolated him from the outside world. In this mysterious space, it seems to be a different small world, isolated from the world. As an admiral of the marine, you must have heard of my ability. At the moment when he released Room, Law's tight heart relaxed. Only when Wu Chen was trapped in Room's encirclement did he feel that he had a chance of winning. Nicknamed Surgeon of Death, Surgeon Fruit Ability, Tragafar Law. But what do you think this can change, just because you are a Surgeon Fruit Ability? Dustless asked with a sneer on his face. To be honest, except for the ability of Ageless Surgery, the other abilities of Surgeon Fruit have no bright spots. Hearing this, Law's eyes flashed with a fierce light and said confidently, everything within the range of Room is under my control. Even if it is a Logia ability, it will be hurt by me. The high-frequency electric shock of the automatic electric shock controlled within the space range causes the organs of the person who is hit to be damaged by the high-frequency current flowing all over the body. It can even cut the target into several pieces. Even the Logia ability can't immediately restore the original appearance. I've been talking nonsense for a long time, but I still haven't seen you do it. Since you don't do it, then don't blame me for bullying you. After that, Dustless's body glowed with countless luster and whizzed out. In just a moment, he came to Law's side and condensed his shining calf and kicked straight at his abdomen. Chapter 622. Law's pupils suddenly shrank and he did not hesitate to put his hands in front of him. He was ready for the defensive impact, but the dazzling flash suddenly subsided, as if nothing had happened. It was strangely calm. Law was stunned and opened his eyes subconsciously. Dustless came into view with a playful smile on his face, looking at him playfully, standing in front of Law, his thumb closed, and then lightly flicked toward Law's face. The air splashed with ripples, and the air waves visible to the naked eye spread out. Boom! Law, who was caught off guard, was suddenly hit, and there were obvious bloated marks on his forehead. The blood-red scars were clearly visible. He suffered an unprecedented heavy blow. His face was as pale as paper, like a willow branch drifting with the waves in the storm. He was vulnerable. Why? Is your strength just like that, Law? It seems that Corazone's death did not hit you hard enough, and your hatred is not deep enough, otherwise, you would not be so fragile. Looking at Law with disdain, Dustless shook his head sarcastically, and his face was full of naked disdain. Your confident look just now, was it all for Corazone to see? I really feel sorry for Corazone. Hearing this, Law's eyes flashed with violent killing intent, his eyes turned scarlet, and he stared at Dustless unkindly. This look is good, but your appearance is a waste of this sharp look. It gives people a feeling of blindness. That is, it's a slap in the face. Shaking his head hopelessly, Dustless looked at Law, whose face was getting darker and darker, and did not hesitate to add fuel to the fire. Once he thought that this kid could do immortality surgery, he would not hesitate to use genjutsu to control him. Wu Chen was now able to be immortal and indestructible. His female confidants were still unable to reach this level. He could only control Luo to temporarily use it on one of them. This is also the fundamental purpose of Dustless's control of Law. This kid has no outstanding ability in other aspects. The reason why he is stimulated is to force out his strength and see if he has the strength to do immortality surgery now. Clang, clang, clang. The wild sword in his hand was unsheathed and condensed into a cold light. Law's eyes were isolated from the world, like 10,000 years of ice and inhuman. Ah! Dustless made a frightened expression and looked at Law in fear. I hope you can still be so smug later. With a livid face, Law lost his calm and roared angrily. Corazon is Law's reverse scale and the person he respects the most. Just now, he caught the contempt and disdain in Dustless's tone, which has indirectly aroused Law's killing intent. Room, slaughterhouse. Aiming at the tiny loopholes in Dustless's body, Luo Yidao swept out. He thought that he could easily divide Dustless, but the unexpected scene made him stunned. Clang clang clang, Dustless stood quietly in the same place, without the slightest discomfort in his body, but there would be a roaring impact of steel, which could not shake him at all. It was extremely difficult to force Dustless to move his feet, let alone divide him. The strangest thing is that Dustless's whole body is covered with black dark skin, like steel integrated with the skin, which is extremely strong. What is this? Law's tone with surprise and doubt, muttered to himself incredulously. After wandering in North Blue for so many years, he has seen such a strange ability for the first time. His throat twitched unconsciously, and Law's face was full of amazement. He saw this strange scene for the first time. Is this the rumored armament hockey? Thinking of the legend of armament hockey, Law was shocked. This is the first time he has met someone who can use armament hockey, especially this kind of whole-body armament hockey, which is unheard of. He didn't expect that this kind of trick, which can touch the body of Logia's fruit, can also defend against his surgeon fruit. The clang 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 steel impact that came from Dustless's body was actually his attack. But it did not cause any substantial damage, and even Dustless's skin did not break. Your surgeon fruit is very good. It is invincible, but if you think you can defeat me with this special attack, it is tantamount to a fool's dream. Dustless, who entered the state of armament hockey, said indifferently. The ability of surgeon fruit is unsolvable. In the special space created by Law, everything is dominated by him, and armament hockey can be defended to a certain extent. In the future, Doflamingo will use armament hockey to defend against Law's slaughterhouse. Do you think your ability is invincible and you can do whatever you want? Every day there are many pirates on the Grand Line who think so, but they all end up dead. Dustless, who was shining with black light, said. There are countless pirates who have the ability of surgeon fruit, but in the end, they still step into the abyss of hell, which also shows that there is no invincible ability in this world, and the key is comprehensive ability in all aspects. No, I can't die yet. I have to avenge Corazon. Law roared hysterically as he stared at Dustless, who was slowly approaching. Dustless didn't take a step forward, and his heart would be depressed and desperate. This monster with black paint and steel bones is enough to defend against all attacks. It is no different from invincible. His attack and defense are perfect. It is almost impossible to shake him. Fragile. Seeing Law's eyes flickering, Dustless had already guessed that he was exhausted and had done his best. Boom! Chapter 623. Although its power is not as great as that of Consusanu, it also has advantages. Each has its own strengths and weaknesses, and it all depends on the geographical environment. A place like the Sabaody archipelago may not be able to withstand the complete Consusanu's knife, and it will be dismembered. There is no need to do that to an exaggerated extent. Cough, cough, cough. His throat couldn't help but vomit bloodstains, and his abdomen was hit by Dustless's heavy punch, and there were already traces of depression, and he was only one step away from completely stepping into the coffin. If it weren't for Dustless's deliberate mercy, Law's abdomen would have become a bloody hole and been penetrated by the powerful force of armament hockey. Do you still want to stand up? Your willpower is strong. Seeing Law's face, Dustless nodded slightly and did not hesitate to give a look of appreciation. Although in the eyes of Dustless, Law is now as fragile as a sheep and can be killed at will, it is undeniable that this guy has been practicing hard all year round and has honed the heart of a strong man. In the future, there will definitely be a place for him in the vast sea. However, fate is ruthless, and he is regarded as something in the bag by Dustless, the big hungry wolf. His fate has been doomed. Dustless glanced at Law and then took it back. He had no intention of killing him, at least not now. He walked away with his head held high, but Law's unwillingness to give up sounded in his ears. Mr. Corazon said that the race with D in the name can turn something rotten into something magical. I can't lie here. Since D can do what people can't do, how can I lie in this ghost place? Turning his head and glancing at him with pity, Dustless sighed that he was poisoned too deeply. Sometimes when you know too much, You will feel that your fate is full of twists and turns, and your life is full of ups and downs and things are changeable. Like a clown, you will be played by the karma set by God, and you will only suffer more blows and even distort your heart. If you don't know this, everything will not be so complicated, but you will live happily and not be distressed by intrigues. Sometimes ignorance is also a kind of happiness. What can you do if you are D? You are not Monkey D. Luffy. There is no protagonist aura. Sweeping him, Dustless raised his thumb and gathered golden photons in the front, condensed into a small golden dot, pointed at Law's body and shot straight out. Laser Poochie, the whistling light easily penetrated Law, leaving a bloody hole in his left shoulder. After several tortures, he finally fell to the ground with serious injuries and his consciousness. These injuries may be fatal to ordinary people, but for pirates like Law who are constantly training themselves, although they are serious, they are not fatal, because Dustless deliberately avoids the vital organs of his body. From the point of view of a genius doctor like Luo, even if he could not operate on himself, there was still a way to save his life. Boom! Boom! The ground suddenly trembled and a strong storm swooped down. The pirates and marines who were fighting around were hit by this strong impact. Their eyes turned white and their mouths frothed as they were stunned. This unparalleled Haushaku Haki. There is such a powerful character on this island. This kind of pure Haushaku Haki is already considered to be perfect. It is very rare in the second half of the Grand Line. Dustless's eyes lit up, and he was a little surprised. In his mind, he could vaguely see a figure with an arrogant face and a big belly. The figure's bright eyes were filled with contempt, looking at everyone with disdain. Mr. General. That old man Green Pepperall went berserk. The Marine officer who hurried over said with a tone of anxiety and urgency. He even ignored the unconscious Law lying on the ground. Compared with Green Pepper, this kid is just a random fish on the side of the road, not worth mentioning. What about Sakazuki and Kazan? Dustless asked calmly. Both of them already have the strength of an admiral, but their ranks are still vice-admirals. Together, they can definitely capture Green Pepper, and it's easy to stop him. No matter how powerful Green Pepper is in his heyday, he can't resist the siege of two admirals. There are too many pirates on the island, and some of them are mysterious masters. Sakazuki and Mr. Akiji are tied down by them to deal with other pirates. Dustless frowned when he heard this. He didn't remember any masters in the Sabaody archipelago. Is it him? The figure of Pluto, Rayleigh, popped up in his mind. Dustless secretly guessed. Rayleigh is still in his peak period and is not as old as he will be in the future. If it's him, it's not a problem to contain either Sakazuki or Kazan. Boom, boom, boom. Another monstrous momentum spread out, rolling up bursts of smoke and dust, like a wild beast breaking out of its cage, venting the madness in its heart. That guy is really arrogant. Garp made him bald in the past and he didn't learn anything. Now he's coming out to make trouble. Do you think I'll let you slip away like Garp? His eyes were cold, and his overbearing eyes looked through the dense forest. He saw a strong old man who could shatter the earth with a wave of his hand. It's worth mentioning that at this moment, Green Pepper no longer showed any signs of going bald. His head was like a sharp thorn. Dustless could even see the arrogant smile on his face. Green Pepper may be retaliating against Mr. Garp for leaving him a shadow. The Marine who came to inform Green Pepper said bitterly. Garp offended him, but he didn't dare to find trouble with him. Instead, he bullied these small fries. It's ridiculous. On the contrary, Wuxia looked at Green Pepper indifferently and sighed sadly. It's a pity that the head that just recovered is going to be bald again. In addition, he will be imprisoned in a dark place like Impel Down. But this is also his own fault. He can't blame anyone else. Dustless said to himself emotionlessly. If he was Green Pepper, he would run away immediately and stay away from this place. Chapter 624. There is no need to show off just because he has some strength. There are countless strong people in this world, and there will always be someone stronger. Now Don Chinjo is quite unlucky to meet Dustless, a butcher who kills without blinking. He can only blame him for being arrogant, thinking that he can be invincible and despise everything in the world. Everything needs to be looked at with equal eyes, and the appearance of colored glasses also means that this person has arrogance. Now Don Chinjo is like this. After a moment of contemplation, Dustless took him to the center of Don Chinjo's chaos. The geology has undergone amazing changes, and the broken ground is like a spider web in a mess, reflecting Don Chinzhou's strength is indeed extraordinary. A duel with the strength of an admiral can change the surrounding environment without any effort. 10,000 Mammoth Heaven. Gently lifting his palm, a narrow black hole appeared in Dustless's palm, exuding a majestic gravitational force. The unscrupulous Don Chinzhou suddenly realized the existence of Dustless. His sharp eyes vaguely flashed with dazzling lightning, and his cold eyes went straight to Dustless. Admiral? Aware of Dustless's location, Don Chinzhou said. Eyes narrowed, aware of the gravitational force enveloping his body, Don Chinzhou's breathing stagnated, his face full of horror, sharp eyes looking at Dustless, full of vigilance. The youngest admiral in history. This is what the outside world calls Dustless. Although he is the so-called honorary admiral, no one cares about that these days. Stepping into the position of an admiral at a young age indirectly means that he is a monster with superior strength. Tense nerves, trying to stabilize his body with all his strength, but being constantly pulled by the powerful gravitational force, any resistance is useless. Go to hell! Seeing that he can't stop his body, Don Chinzhou roared and turned from defense to offense. With the traction of gravity like a cannonball, he rushed to Dustless's face, the spiked head covered with armament hockey, like an electric drill, spinning at a crazy high speed. It is self-evident what will happen to a normal human being if hit by this. Garp has already hit your head, but looking at your impulsive appearance, it should be. Seeing Green Pepper advancing instead of retreating, the gravitational force in Dustless's hands suddenly extinguished. He opened his arms to embrace the sky, and a force that was completely opposite to the previous gravitational force swept out of thin air. Shinra Tensei. Bang! The strange repulsive force was so powerful that Chinzhou, who was caught off guard, was sent flying. A long and narrow crack appeared on the ground, and he fell heavily to the ground. His strength wasn't very strong, so Green Pepper, who had a frightening physique, was only slightly injured. An ability to combine both offense and defense. How troublesome. Staring at Dustless, Don Chinzhou secretly guessed. The top of his head turned black again, covered with a higher density of armament hockey. Standing up and staring at Dustless, Don Chinzhou's eyes were not filled with fear. Instead, they were full of fighting spirit. Lasers! A straight beam of light whizzed over, and Green Pepper, who had been so pleased with himself, was immediately engulfed. His entire body was engulfed in flames, and his entire being was annihilated by the crimson flames. Sneak attack. You Marines are as despicable as ever. Chinzhou's slightly angry roar came out of the fire, and then a dark giant stepped out of the flames. The powerful roar mixed with the presence of a domineering presence spread to every corner of the island. Sneak attack? Have you become so arrogant after recovering your full strength? Do you think you are worthy of my sneak attack? A ghostly whisper, without warning, rang in Chinzhou's ears. Suddenly, he turned his head and saw a golden calf whizzing over. Light speed kick. The voice was full of ruthlessness, and the power condensed on the foot was full of indifference. A merciless kick fell, and Chinzhou was suddenly nowhere to be seen. Boom boom boom. The black shadow that was kicked out hit a large building, and in an instant, it was smashed into pieces and turned into countless broken walls. Chinzhou was lying among them, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. It's not a sneak attack, you must have realized. Your huge body is not enough to keep up with my speed. As for the sneak attack, you are just deceiving yourself. The cold voice spread out. Dustless said expressionlessly. Human reaction nerves are limited, and the speed of light is beyond the scope of human seriousness. Even if he can perceive the existence of Dustless through observation hockey, he can't keep up with his attack frequency. It will create the illusion of a sneak attack, but in fact, Dustless is rushing in a straight line. Dustless's speed is too fast, and it is not an exaggeration to describe it as 10,000 miles in a glance. Although the distance of movement is limited, in Chinzhou's eyes it is such an exaggerated speed. Through observation hockey, he can predict and even locate Dustless's foothold, but he can't make a counterattack to keep up with the speed of light frequency. In particular, Chinzhou's body is huge, and it is more difficult for him to move. Boom boom boom, a golden brilliance suddenly rose into the sky, full of dangerous fluctuations, and then scattered like a storm, and the broken walls that Chinzhou was buried deep in instantly turned into ruins. It turned into negligible powder floating in the sky. The power of the light speed kick is obviously not comparable to the laser, and there are obvious bloodstains on Chinzhou's left shoulder, and there are traces of depression. Looking at Dustless angrily, Chinjo's killing intent is obvious. Even if you stare at me so fiercely, I won't be merciful. Golden photons appeared all over his body, and in an instant he turned into a flash of light, and then swept straight into the sky. The photons floating in the air recombined and condensed, and Dustless's face appeared. The dangerous light condensed in the palm of his hand, covering an unprecedented vast area, and anyone who is shrouded in the golden light will feel a sense of horror. Yasakani no Magatama. After a while, the flash poured down like a rainstorm, and the number of boundless flashes can't be calculated, and the whole sky was dyed with a dazzling golden color. Armament hockey hardening. Seeing this, Chinjo's face twitched, and his face turned green. He did not hesitate to use his whole body's armament hockey to defend himself. This kind of horrible attack made it meaningless to escape. Chapter 625. The individual attack power of the Yasakani no Magatama may not be very strong, but it has a wide range and a dense number of attacks, which can completely make up for the lack of power. Quantity can change quality. This is the iron principle summed up by the ancient sages. Boom boom boom. Sharp whistling sounds continued to reverberate through the air as the mighty energy tide swallowed Green Pepper whole. In the blink of an eye, he was annihilated. Coincidentally, Don Chinjo also became a shining person in an instant, his whole body shrouded in a bright brilliance. Clang clang clang. The roar of steel continued. Countless light bullets tried to invade Don Chinjo's body, not letting go of every inch of his skin, ruthlessly destroying it. Even with the defense of armament hockey, Dustless could vaguely hear the painful howls. Although the defense of armament hockey is amazing, it depends on who the opponent is. Ah! You are worthy of the person who once needed Lieutenant General Gop to personally deal with. Your strength is really extraordinary. Dustless's pupils were slightly enlarged, and he chuckled. After a while, the sky dyed golden became clear, and Don Chinjo was also exposed to Dustless's sight. Insincere little brat, this old man will definitely double the revenge. Don Chinjo gritted his teeth and said hatefully. The hostility in his words was so strong that he wanted to tear Dustless into pieces. Looking closely, Don Chinjo's body was covered with countless small sunken spots and bright red bloodstains, all thanks to Dustless's Yasakani no Magatama. Don't be so fierce. Anyway, I didn't kill you. Dustless shrugged, and he didn't care. Hearing this, Don Chinjo's face stiffened, and his murderous aura almost solidified. His nose was crooked and he thought in his heart, if I die, how can I take revenge? Don Chinjo said in a strange tone, I hope you don't regret it. In my life, I have never known how to write the word regret. If you have the ability, just come at me, no need to talk nonsense. Dustless's body landed on the ground, and he smiled indifferently. Giving Dustless a fierce look, Don Chinjo's feet suddenly slammed on the ground, and his huge body ignored the existence of gravity, and jumped dozens of meters high. Whoosh! Don Chinjo, who was in mid-air, rotated his body at high speed and threw out a hurricane. His sharp head turned black in an instant, covered with armament hockey that could penetrate everything. This move uses the sharp head to crush the target with the force of the fall. It's quite exaggerated. Dustless nodded. Hearing this, Green Pepper, who was hovering in the air, couldn't help but feel a burst of anger. No matter how hard he tried to suppress it, he couldn't calm himself down. Since you're exaggerating, you should at least show a shocked expression. Even if you don't respect the elderly and love the young, you should at least respect the feelings of the elderly. Don't say one thing but do another. Ba Chong Quan Dragon All Nail. Green Pepper opening door. Seeing that Dustless was standing on the ground and not dodging, Green Pepper's eyes flashed with an ominous glint. He then used all the strength in his body to dive down. The power gathered in his sharp head was enough to easily disintegrate a mountain. Back then, he had used this move to crash into the ice continent. Just one hit was enough to create a large crack that was several kilometers long and tens of meters deep on the thick ice surface. The Sabaody archipelago was likely to collapse under the impact. You can escape like a stray dog. Anyway, this island that has suffered a heavy blow will definitely be buried with this old man's resentment. At that time, the reputation of the Marine headquarters will also be swept away. Ha ha! Green Pepper raised his head and laughed wildly. At the same time, he looked at Dustless from the corner of his eyes, but he didn't change his expression. Because Dustless had made him bald in the past, Green Pepper had always held a grudge against the Marine, especially when he was trampled on by Dustless. His inner dignity had been insulted. Escape. Don't even dream about it. Dustless looked up at the falling Green Pepper with his calm eyes. He hugged the sky with his hands and gave up the idea of using armament hockey to fight back. Dustless had only been practicing armament hockey for a short time. Although he had great achievements, he was still not as good as Green Pepper, who had been playing armament hockey for most of his life. He naturally knew how to use it. If he tried to fight back, he would only break his head. Shinra Tensei. Dustless's clothes suddenly fluttered, and a repulsive force broke out of his body, forming a perfect 360-degree defense, protecting Dustless from the impact of Green Pepper. Boom! Gotcha! Shinra Tensei's defense was obviously not enough to resist Green Pepper. The repulsive force was torn open by his sharp head and easily broke through Shinra Tensei's defense. Go to hell! Green Pepper roared ferociously as he stood close to Dustless. He laughed hysterically, venting the depression in his heart. Just now, he had been mercilessly trampled by Dustless. It was like an adult violently beating up a child. His dignity was swept to the ground. When Dustless was about to be smashed into a pool of meat, the void suddenly splashed with golden light, and a large arm completely formed by special energy swept across. Boom! At the moment when it was about to touch Dustless, even the sharp head had touched Dustless's hair and was about to drill his head into brain, it was suddenly swept away by the golden fist. Boom boom boom. Green Pepper once again flew out bitterly. Coincidentally, the same scene as before, he directly smashed a large building into a pile of rubble and buried himself deep in it. Desperately may be able to make up for the gap in strength, but you and I are indeed dimensional monsters. No matter how hard you work, how desperately you fight, it will be useless in front of Kinsusanu. Dustless said lightly. The indifference in his words was as if he was drinking tea. At the same time, behind his body, the golden shadow gradually condensed and turned into a golden giant with a terrible face. The golden light shrouded the sky and covered the earth. The exaggerated height made people despair. If they wanted to fight this giant head-on, they had to at least be as tall as him. Otherwise, it would be like drawing water with a bamboo basket. Chapter 626. The mighty and extraordinary giant covered Dustless. The simple and heavy armor was clearly visible, covering the giant's body. However, this giant was obviously not at its peak state. It was more like a miniature version. Some of its limbs were obviously incomplete. But even so, her exaggerated figure still made people feel terrified and hopeless. The evil golden light was beyond imagination. Under the cover of the light, one would feel suffocated. The mighty and extraordinary iron fist was enough to smash a large mountain. Can you stand up this time? But it seems that you can't. Dustless sighed as Green Pepper under the ruins did not move. He had tried his best to control Kinsusanu's strength. He was hoping that this strong old man could play for a while, but it seemed that Dustless thought too much. Kaka? There was a throbbing sound from the ruins, and then it collapsed one after another. Then, Green Pepper could be seen crawling out of it. He was in a mess, and his whole body was bleeding. His bloody appearance was as if he had just run out of a pool full of blood. Ah! It's really scary to look like this. It seems that you still want to continue to fight. Why don't you just lie on the ground and wait for me to put the iron cuffs on you, and then escort you to Impel Down? Dustless sighed in distress. There was a world of difference between them, but he still struggled and suffered physical pain. Why should he ask for it? How can I just stand there and wait to be captured? This old man also has a dream dash. Boom boom boom. Before Green Pepper's voice fell, the golden rainbow fell from the sky and forcibly suppressed him. The bright light mercilessly crushed Green Pepper's huge body, pressing him into the ground. Kaka. Unable to withstand the brutal force, the ground constantly cracked and trembled. The huge cracks crazily swallowed the surrounding ground, mercilessly destroying the surrounding environment. After a while, the golden light condensed and formed, revealing Dustless's figure. His eyes indifferently looking at Green Pepper under his feet. His eyes were as cold as ice. People who talk about dreams are people who have the same strength. Before you talk about dreams in front of me, you should first think about how to escape from Impel Down. Don't talk like this, it's just a joke. Dustless's words were like a thorn that pierced deeply into Green Pepper's heart. His eyes were locked onto Dustless's face, as if he wanted to engrave that cold face of his into his heart forever. The look in your eyes. Is that a silent protest? Dustless asked as he stared at Green Pepper's eyeballs, which were about to pop out of their sockets. Hearing this, Kon Chinjo seemed to have accepted his fate. He removed the armament hockey state, revealing his bloody body. Between his words, he was exhausted. I used to hear that the new Marine Admiral was a monster. I always thought it was an exaggeration. Now it seems that it is not a lie. Gasping, Don Chinjo said inexplicably. Dustless couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, indifferently looking at Don Chinjo under his feet. What do you want to say? He always felt that this guy's words had a hidden meaning. Don Chinjo's eyes were vaguely sneering, which made Dustless's eyes flash fiercely. A mere stray dog dares to be so arrogant. Ka ka ka. With a sudden force on one foot, there was a crisp roar. Dustless mercilessly stepped on Don Chinjo's head. His originally sharp head was once again stepped back to its original shape by Dustless. He turned back to the bald man of the past. If that's the case, you should be more obedient. If not, I don't mind adding some more meat. Dustless sneered as he looked at Don Chinjo's limbs with cold eyes. Boom boom boom. The sound of countless cannons suddenly spread, and the sea around Sabaody was densely packed with pirates, mercilessly shelling the entire Sabaody archipelago. Indiscriminate shelling covered the entire island. Ordinary civilians are also being targeted. Seeing this, Dustless slightly frowned. This intensive shelling, including the ordinary civilians who were not involved, was also involved in this huge shelling. Aware that his head returned to its original shape, Don Chinjo's killing intent rose, and he was about to fight with Dustless again, but the stinging pain all over his body made him grimace in pain. He intended to resist, but he couldn't launch a sneak attack. Civilians? So what? This old man is a pirate, not a marine. Don Chinjo sneered. As a pirate, he only has himself in his eyes. There is no need to worry about the life and death of others. This is the most basic principle of being a pirate. Stubborn resistance. Don Chinjo hopelessly glanced at Don Chinjo. If he didn't guess wrong, those battleships that shelled the Sabaody archipelago were Don Chinjo's subordinates, or pirates attached to them. Leave it to me, just freeze all of them. At this moment, Kuzan's slightly tired voice came, and his tone was full of exhaustion. Dustless's face was full of doubts. Kuzan's strength was almost the same as an admiral, but his tired appearance, and even the corners of his clothes had many holes. It was obvious that he had encountered a top powerhouse. Your state. What the hell is going on, Hell King? Rayleigh should be restrained by Sakazuki. Staring at the slightly embarrassed Kuzan, Dustless was puzzled. On this island, only Hell King Rayleigh is a top powerhouse. In the future, when he was old, he could fight Kizaru, and now he is still young naturally, he can fight Admiral. Kuzan's expression was stiff, and there was a flash of embarrassment. He scratched his head and said, Suddenly a guy with a red nose attacked me. That guy's ability is very strange. His body can split into 4 or 5 parts. Thinking of that strange ability, Kuzan was quite surprised. Red nose. Chapter 627. Although he doesn't understand what Buggy's purpose is, judging from the treachery of the world government, the Gorosei will never arrange a weak clown as Shichibukai for no reason. There must be some unknown secret in it. After hearing Kuzan's words, Dustless suddenly realized that the situation around Buggy the clown was indeed somewhat illogical. Watertight is not an unintentional mistake. Sometimes it is because it is too perfect that mistakes are made. Dustless saw this epitome in Buggy the clown now. Perfection is also a failure. Boom! Harsh explosions rang out, and the sea around the Sabaody archipelago was bombarded by a large number of pirate ships, and the civilians of the Sabaody archipelago fled like rats crossing the street. Hey! It's really troublesome. I thought it would be a pleasant task. These pirates are really tricky. Looking far away, Akiji saw that the distant sea was full of battleships, and he quickly swept over. He only needed to use his ice age on the sea to freeze the surrounding sea, and these pirates would be like turtles in a jar. It's a pity. Dustless looked down at Don Chinjo and said abruptly. Don Chinjo's face was black, and he simply ignored the existence of Dustless and buried his old face in the ground. It seems that the monotonous ground is better than Dustless's face. Seeing this, Dustless just smiled. Your apprentice beat the celestial dragons and robbed the devil fruit auctioned by Charles Ross. If he was caught, I don't need to say it. You know what the end would be. It's lucky to be executed directly. Dustless said. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Green Pepper's old face changed subtly. Of course, it's the luckiest thing to be executed directly. With the cruelty of the celestial dragons, it's normal to cut him into pieces and then throw him into the sea to feed the sea kings. Dustless continued to add fuel to the fire. Celestial dragons are arrogant and look down on everyone. In their eyes, humans are just inferior creatures. To put it bluntly, humans all over the world are their entertainment. Although it sounds a bit exaggerated, the world of celestial dragons is like this. What are you trying to say? Green Pepper asked in an unfriendly manner. Every time Dustless talked about the habits of the celestial dragons, Cone Green Pepper's heart became more and more depressed. Once his disciple was captured alive, he would inevitably be dismembered by the furious celestial dragons. In fact, what I want to say is very simple. Obey me, and I have something for you to do. If not, I will give your apprentice to the celestial dragons, and you can imagine the end. If you are willing to obey me, in the future, I will let you go safe and sound, and so will your apprentices. Dustless smiled evilly, full of coercion. When Don Chinjo was in his heyday, he was a big pirate with a bounty of more than 500 million berries. His strength was self-evident. Garp needed to personally deal with him. He fought with Admiral with ease. Dustless's current subordinates, except for Hawkeye who can suppress him, it is estimated that no one is his opponent. Although Doflamingo was strong, it was still some distance away from its peak. Are you threatening me? Don Chinjo asked angrily. Golden waves swept out, and the suffocating Haushiku Haki was oppressive and suffocating. I am indeed threatening you. Dustless smiled happily and frankly admitted it. Between life and death, choosing the wrong choice would mean stepping into hell. Choosing the right choice would allow one to ascend to the heavens. It all depended on how one chose. My apprentice hit the celestial dragons. Even if you are a marine admiral, you can't pardon them. Don Chinjo did not refuse, but chose to retort. The identity of a marine admiral is scary enough, but he is still a lackey for the celestial dragons. Even some pirates in the New World ridiculed the marine admiral as the most loyal lackey of the celestial dragons. Where the celestial dragons are on fire, the marine admiral is responsible for extinguishing the fire there. Is it? What if I am also a celestial dragon? Dustless asked jokingly. To some extent, the law of the world is built according to the will of the celestial dragons to satisfy their selfish desires and have great power. Even if a few pirates are released, it doesn't matter. Nonsense. Do you think this old man is a 3-year-old child? The whole world knows that the celestial dragons are incompetent straw bags. His eyes widened, and the words that came to his mouth stopped abruptly. Don Chinjo looked at the corner of Dustless's torn clothes in horror. You are really a celestial dragon. Are you kidding me? Aren't they all incompetent straw bags? His rolling eyes suddenly lost their focus and was replaced by shock, and then he took a deep breath. Don Chinjo looked at Dustless's exposed coat. The uniform that only a celestial dragon dares to wear is not fake. Pretending to be a celestial dragon? The entire world government has been around for more than 800 years, and no one has been so bold. How about, agree to my conditions and go to heaven? Refuse me. It's not impossible, but you have to be prepared in advance that your apprentice will be torn to pieces. Dustless said with a smile. Don Chinjo's old face turned green when he heard this. He was completely in a passive state and could only follow Dustless's nose. If he refuses, the apprentice who attacked the celestial dragons will be finished at any time. Agree? This is naturally even more impossible. He was beaten by Dustless, and now he has to beg for mercy in front of him. Don Chinjo's arrogant self-esteem can't stand it, and he can't accept it. For a time, he was in a dilemma. It was like a person suddenly beating you up and then using despicable means to make you be his obedient son. Moreover, it was the kind that you had to be. Aggrieved, uncomfortable, unwilling, hatred. All kinds of expressions solidified on Don Chinjo's face. For a moment, he almost vomited blood. He has never felt so resentful in his life. As an admiral of the marine, how can you be so despicable? Don Chinjo asked angrily. In his heart, he was so angry that he cursed. This kind of person should be killed by a heavenly punishment. The marine who boasted of absolute justice, unexpectedly produced such a shameless and dirty villain like Dustless. God is simply blind. Chapter 628. Green Pepper's heart wavered, and he was in a dilemma. He could not swallow the humiliation of being Wu Chen's lackey. He had been slapped in the face, yet he still had to bow down like a grandson. He could not swallow this humiliation. Zhue Ji Green Pepper was also a world-famous great thief. How could he be willing to accept this? However, if he didn't obey Dustless, only death awaited him. The cruelty and coldness of the celestial dragons was well known to the world. Things that they fancied would be snatched by coercive means. Now that Charles fancied his apprentice, there was no other way except to be torn to pieces by the exposed celestial dragons. Are you still hesitating? My time waits for no one. Wasting other people's time for no reason is tantamount to murder for money. Seeing Green Pepper's face twitching, Dustless said softly, "If you refuse my conditions, I don't mind calling that fat pig Chalmers here right now, and I'll cut you into pieces in front of your face." Dustless smiled devilishly. The cold smile hanging on the corner of his mouth was particularly horrifying, making one's scalp tingle. You devil," Green Pepper said in a trembling voice. Wu Chen's cruel and callous appearance was obviously not a joke. Only the word demon could replace him. If one offended someone like Wu Chen, they would be in a situation where they could neither live nor die. Speed decides. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. After spending half a day, Dustless also lost his patience. Green Pepper heard this and quickly exchanged glances. After thinking hard, he finally nodded heavily. As the saying goes, a bad life is better than a good death. In addition, he also didn't want his disciple, who had followed him for a lifetime, to be brutally dismembered by the celestial dragons and fed to the sea kings. "You know your place," Dustless said leisurely as he withdrew his foot from Green Pepper's back. Green Pepper's strength couldn't be underestimated. He was at the level of a general. Such a powerful person was the subordinate that Dustless needed at the moment. It was perfect to use him to carry out some secret missions. It wasn't easy for this old man to recover my head, but it's been beaten back to its original form again, Green Pepper said in distress as he rubbed his head. This was the most tragic thing in life. After being beaten up, he could only swallow his anger. What was even more tragic was that he had become the other party's underling. He suddenly felt that all the bad luck in the world had fallen on his head. Allah Allah Allah. It's a group of vicious murderers. If I don't take care of you, the marshal won't let me off easily. On the shore of the Sabaody archipelago, Kuzan frowned. Pirates were hateful, and this group of people who slaughtered weak civilians were even more hateful in Kazan's eyes. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong was also the type of people he hated the most. With a leap, 2 icicles extended from his arms and smashed into the sea. "Ice-Sayon." As Kazan's voice fell, the entire surface of the sea suddenly froze into ice. The ice quickly spread in all directions and froze the entire sea in an instant. The boundless area was stupefying, and the rumbling of the cannons stopped abruptly. "This old man has seen that little devil before." Dustless and Don Chinjo were secretly watching the movements on the sea. Don Chinjo recognized Kazan at a glance. When he fought with Garp, he was there. His superb freezing ability was world famous. "I've never seen a pirate flag. Where did this clown come from?" Eyebrows slightly raised. Dustless puzzled. At first, he thought that this was Don Chinjo's subordinates, but now it seems that he thought too much. A pirate flag that he had never seen before was obviously a passerby type. There are many people in the Sabaody archipelago. This old man only brought a few apprentices. Before, I said that I would bombard the Sabaody archipelago, but this old man was just fooling the Marines. Don Chinjo said proudly. The apprentices who came with him had been secretly arranged to leave. Don Chinjo was wearing large black handcuffs. Before, he had beaten Dustless to the point where he couldn't fight back. Naturally, he couldn't just let him go. He needed the right opportunity. The mission has been completed. Only this group of minions is left. His eyes swept straight into the distance. The frozen ships in front of them could no longer move. They were like turtles in a jar. They could be annihilated any time and anywhere. The distance is quite far. Let me send you on your way. This lonely and boring mission should be over. Wu Chen's eyes turned, emitting a clear and cold light. Suddenly, Several green spheres floated behind him. It was very mysterious. At the same time, Dustless's body also changed and was swallowed by an emerald light. If you can die under this move, you can rest in peace in the underworld. When his voice fell, several green beads behind him floated in front of Dustless and then strangely liquefied, turning into a bright golden light condensed in Dustless's right hand. Don Chinjo's pupils suddenly shrank. Although the light in Dustless's hand was very small, it gave him an unprecedented sharpness. It seemed that the whole world could be split. Stop here. His arm suddenly raised high and pointed to a large number of frozen pirate ships in the distance. Immediately, without hesitation, the light in his hand extended countless times in an instant. Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. An earth-shattering beam of light swept out. The endless light ignored distance. In front of it, even the ends of the earth would be useless. They would still be within the attack range. Boom, boom, boom. The light beam slashed down and the dense pirate group in the distance was suddenly annihilated. The whole sea was horribly split open with a gap of tens of kilometers. It was boundless. Gulp! Don Chinjo was stunned and swallowed his saliva. His eyes flashed with fear and dissatisfaction. He felt a chill down his spine. He knew that this was Dustless's demonstration in disguise. If he wanted to be lucky, even if he was at the end of the earth, he would be killed by this unprecedented move. Ah! Really, I tried my best to hold back, but he still created such a large-scale attack. It really is a difficult technique to control. Dustless was quite depressed. Chapter 629. Trying to hold back, not going all out? Green Pepper's old face turned green. Dense black lines hung on his forehead. He cursed in his heart as the corners of his mouth twitched. He clenched his teeth tightly to prevent himself from being killed by Dustless if he roared out loud. This guy is too annoying. Not only did he destroy all the pirates in one move, but he also said that he was trying to hold back, not going all out. Especially Dustless's reluctant look made Don Chinjo uncomfortable, and he couldn't help but feel injustice for the group of people who were killed by Dustless. Killing all the pirates of others, but in the end, he looked like he was wronged and couldn't exert his full strength. It's really despicable. Don Chinjo shook his head. Maybe after his subordinates and himself were killed, Dustless would have the same expression. In that case it would be too unfair to die. Looking straight ahead, the sea that was frozen by Akiji before had a giant crack of tens of kilometers in length. The whole sea was strangely separated and couldn't heal. This incredible scene was scary. Worthy of being the youngest admiral. Kuzan ran over and flattered with a smile on his face. It seemed that only the smile on his face could hide the shock deep in his face. This shocking attack was beyond the imagination of the world. Even if the Pirate King came back from the dead, he may not be able to do such a terrible thing. Kuzan felt a chill run down his spine when he thought of the several dozen kilometer-long crack in the sea. He looked at the scattered sea surface with fear and trepidation. If it hit a person, that guy Sakazuki doesn't seem to be done yet. But that's right, the opponent is Rayleigh. He should be suppressed miserably. Kuzan chuckled, and there was a hint of schadenfreude. Water and fire are two elements that are difficult to coexist, and Kuzan and Sakazuki are quite incompatible now. The ideas of the two were completely opposite. In order to maintain the rule of the government, Sakazuki could sacrifice anyone. Compared to the benevolent and lazy Kuzan, it was a world of difference. It was also destined that the two would have sparks in some areas. I don't think he's much better. Nether King is still young and full of energy. Sakasuji might not be his match. Dustless analyzed, his eyes sparkling. When the king of the underworld, Rayleigh, fought against the young Sakasuji, Wuchen did not think that the latter's chances of winning were high. Sakasuji might be able to defeat Rayleigh during the War of the Underworld, but he was still too young. As the vice-captain of One Piece, Rayleigh's strength is beyond doubt. He definitely has the strength of an admiral. On the other hand, Sakazuki is still a vice-admiral. Although he has the strength of an admiral, he still has a long way to go to defeat Rayleigh. As for Don Chinjo, he was already escorted to the battleship by the Marines. The route was naturally to Impel Down. A big pirate like Don Chinjo was either executed or escorted to Impel Down. However, Dustless had already secretly prepared something for him to escape. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, Another 4 hours passed quietly. The sun had already set, and the fiery red clouds of dawn covered the world. The sea water was exceptionally beautiful. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen me injured? In the temporary tent, Sakasuji roared in a hoarse voice. He always felt that these marine soldiers were looking at him strangely. His temper was already quite irritable, so he suddenly roared. Dustless looked at Sakasuji playfully. If he could, he would have taken a picture of him right now. His crimson suit was full of holes, and there were clear bloodstains on his arms. There were some bloodstains at the corner of his mouth. The flamboyant corsage he wore was also half burnt. No wonder Sakasuji was so pissed. That damn old man is as strong as a sea king. Sakasuji showed a rare look of shock. Rayleigh's powerful physical strength was beyond his imagination. In terms of physical strength, only the Marine's hero Garp could beat Rayleigh. Dustless nodded undeniably and then said, "Don't worry about Rayleigh. That guy has retired from the world. If we don't take the initiative to provoke him, he shouldn't take the initiative to trouble us." Kuzan and Sakasuji also nodded. The reason why they met Rayleigh this time was because Sakasuji was on a whim. As a result, they were suppressed by the young and energetic Rayleigh. The current 3 admirals are still weak, and there is a gap between them and the future. Otherwise, they would be equal to Rayleigh. The task given by Sengoku has been completed. You go back to the Marine headquarters. I should go back to Mariehua. Hearing this, Sakasuji and Kuzan both showed envious eyes. As a celestial dragon, Dustless moved freely and unrestrained. He was much more leisurely than their busy officers. They couldn't find the right time to be lazy. After about an hour or so, the entire Sabaody archipelago finally returned to quiet, and the big and small pirates were cleaned up. During this period, Charo's sister, the female celestial dragon Shalulia, came to ask for Don Chinjo and others. As a result, she was collared by Dustless in a strange way. In the end, she ran away crying in fear. She didn't even have time to take off the collar on her neck. Wu Chen's reputation was in disarray. He could really do such a crazy thing to find a female celestial dragon as a slave. Dustless was helpless. At night, a biting cold wind blew from the sea, and the marine battleship escorting Don Chinjo quickly sneaked away. "Are you finally here? I'm dying of anxiety. Impel Down is not a place for people to stay." On the mast, Don Chinjo, who was shackled with iron chains, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at White Zetsu, who suddenly appeared in front of him. He was really afraid that Dustless would play with him and take him to Impel Down. In that kind of dark place, it is extremely difficult to breathe. "Dustless. Sama will not forget what he promised you." Glancing at Don Chinjo, White Zetsu opened the iron shackles that bound Don Chinjo. Chapter 630. Don Chinjo nodded ecstatically and then jumped into the sea without hesitation. White Zetsu's clone had been waiting for a long time to pick him up on a boat. It has to be said that the quality of the marine soldiers trained by Sengoku was good. Hearing the sound of falling into the water, a large group of Marines quickly ran out of the cabin and looked at Don Chinjo, who had disappeared. Many smart Marines knew that Don Chinjo did not escape. They used lights to illuminate the entire sea. Don Chinjo disappeared in an instant and they picked up guns to attack him. However, the effect was negligible. Things like guns and cannons are just an insignificant itch for pirates who have more than 500 million berries. Wanting to hurt Don Chinjo is a fantasy, tantamount to a fool's dream. The #1 criminal of the Marine ran away. This crime must be carried by someone. Sengoku naturally can't blame Dustless. This matter has nothing to do with him, not to mention he is a celestial dragon, so he can only say, "What are you two doing?" The next morning, in the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral's office, Sengoku's angry roar resounded. At this moment, Kuzan and Sakazuki were being mercilessly scolded by Sengoku. It must be their turn to carry the blame. A living Don Chinjo ran away. Because of you two, the Marine will be labeled as incompetent, Sengoku said while staring at Sakazuki and Kuzan. If Don Chinjo was an ordinary criminal, it wouldn't be a big deal. With such an unprecedented strength, there is no doubt about the destruction he made. What made Sengoku gloomy the most is that he spent a lot of money to ask Wu Chen to come out, but in the end, Don Chinjo ran away. The Marine headquarters didn't even get a chicken feather in the end, and because of Don Chinjo's escape, they will be labeled as incompetent and useless. Just thinking about it made Sengoku's stomach ache. It's ridiculous. How did that guy do it? I remember to lock him in handcuffs and shackles, and because I was worried, I tied his whole body with a special iron chain. Kuzan was puzzled. Sakazuki frowned and nodded. Obviously, he also had deep doubts about this accident. The cooked duck flew away. It was more uncomfortable than eating 10 pounds of flies. Did I deliberately let him go? Sengoku rolled his eyes and asked with an angry smile. Waving his hand, Sengoku was too lazy to waste his breath. Don Chinjo has run away, and it's useless to reprimand Kuzan and Sakazuki. After a while, I can authorize the three to be admiral. Sengoku secretly decided. If it wasn't for the unexpected incident in the Sabaody archipelago, Borsellino and the others might have already been marine admirals. Now that Don Chinjo suddenly appeared and disappeared, Sakazuki and Kuzan's perfect achievements left a stain. Rashly being promoted to admiral will definitely be a problem. Naturally, Sakazuki and Kuzan. Okay, you can go back. Sengoku tiredly ordered them to leave. For a moment, he gave people the feeling that he was older by more than 10 years, and they could vaguely see the white hair on his temples. Suddenly, they felt that taking over the position of Marine Fleet Admiral was the biggest mistake in their life. Sakasuji and Kuzan did not waste any more words and turned to leave. Angering the fuming marshal was akin to setting fire to himself. Seeing Sakazuki and Kuzan leave, Sengoku's face suddenly began to turn gloomy again. In fact, he also believed in the two. Sakazuki and Kuzan, as well as Borsellino, were his confidants. Damn bastard, don't let me know who did it in the end, if not. With a snort, Sengoku's killing intent soared into the sky. Mariehua. Compared with the depressed Sengoku, Dustless was much more relaxed, basking in the sun leisurely and in a good mood. The plans at hand were carried out perfectly according to his plan. The first was Doflamingo, who became the king of Dressrosa. Although the kid's means were extremely bloody, the effect was good. He easily controlled the wind direction of the whole Dressrosa, completely led public opinion in his direction, and poured all the dirty water on the former King Luke. During this period, several pirates rashly invaded Dressrosa and were annihilated by Doflamingo's overwhelming strength, which encouraged the civilians who had been tortured by pirates for a long time, and Doflamingo's prestige also improved a lot. Those fools are really easy to deceive. Doflamingo just found a few actors and fooled them. After listening to White Zetsu's report, Dustless, who was leisurely basking in the sun, was speechless. The so-called invading pirates were actually actors hired by Doflamingo. However, such a simple trick worked amazingly and successfully eliminated the inner resistance of the residents of Dressrosa. How is the production of the artificial devil fruit going? Dustless asked. All the information about the bloodline factor has been sent to Caesar. The artificial devil fruit is progressing rapidly, and he heard that the finished product has recently come out. White Zetsu was suddenly in a dilemma. His eyebrows squeezed together, but he still gritted his teeth and said, "The finished product has come out, but there are still side effects for the time being. People who eat it will die in a few days." It's no wonder that White Zetsu is in a dilemma. This is far from Dustless's plan for mass production. But even so, the artificial devil fruit has been secretly sold by the black-hearted Doflamingo. Whether they live or die is not something he can control. Die in a few days after eating it? It has such an effect. Hearing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly. In his previous life, he didn't hear that the artificial devil fruit had such side effects. If he didn't know that Caesar was timid and sincerely attached to him, he would really think that this was a trick played by Caesar. Chapter 631. Science and technology need constant demonstration and practice to get results. It is impossible and unrealistic to reach the sky in one step and become a big fat man. What's more, the originator of the bloodline factor is Vegapunk. Caesar is naturally not as good as Vegapunk. The science and technology controlled by the strong are 500 years ahead of the world. This title is not groundless, but worthy of it. Hearing that Caesar's artificial devil fruit is temporarily in a state of failure, Dustless suddenly lost interest. By the way, Law shouldn't have been caught by the marine. Thinking of Law, who was beaten half to death, Dustless asked quietly. White Zetsu shook his head. He was rescued by a big white bear. Thinking of it, White Zetsu's face is still weird and unbelievable. A big white bear that speaks human language and is proficient in physical skills. Anyone would feel strange and subverts human cognition. To some extent, this world is like a biological museum, with all kinds of strange life. That useless kid, it's still too early to do the immortal surgery. His half-baked level, it will take at least 10 years of practice to reach the level I expect. Dustless sighed disappointedly. Surgeon fruit is a different kind of devil fruit. Its incredible attack can easily attack Logia without armament hockey. It belongs to a special type of attack. It consumes a lot of stamina, overuse, and even consumes its own lifespan. Dustless knows Law's character. In case this kid overconsumes his vitality to play with himself, he will cry without tears. Isn't this a suspicion of raising a tiger? Since surgeon fruit is the ultimate devil fruit, maybe there are other abilities in addition to immortal surgery. I can see that the kid is born with a rebellious bone. When his wings are full, he may take the lead in attacking us. White Zetsu was worried. Raising a tiger? I naturally know this. It's not possible, that kid will indeed attack us. Hearing this, Dustless's closed eyes suddenly opened, revealing a cold light, and said blankly, "But how likely do you think the pet can hurt its master?" No, maybe my idea was wrong before. This ambitious pet wants to attack its master. It must clean up the other dogs of the master in advance. Don't you think so, White Zetsu? Dustless continued to close his eyes leisurely in the sun. What can be done about raising a tiger? The world government's establishment of Shichibukai is also raising a tiger. How to use it depends on how the master drives these wolves and dogs. Baiju nodded vaguely. He was confused by Dustless's words and didn't understand it at all. In any case, if you want to hurt Dustless master, you have to go through Doflamingo. White Zetsu. The meaning behind his words was that he was treating Doflamingo as the evil dog that Dustless spoke of. This is indeed the case. If Law wants to find trouble with Dustless in the future, the first thing he should do is to get rid of Doflamingo. After all, Doflamingo killed Law's most respected Corazon. Unless Dustless takes the initiative to attack, the chance of Law seeing him is 0. Taking a step back, even if Rosin could destroy Doflamingo, he would have to face Don Chinjo and Hawkeye, followed by Marine Headquarters and the world government, and finally, Wu Chen's main body. It is self-evident how difficult it is. Wanting to retaliate against Dustless is actually just a motivation for Law to drive him forward. After all, a dream is a dream, and it can't be taken seriously. Humph, what's more, as long as I detect that he has the strength to perform the ageless surgery, I will use Genjutsu on him. That kid wants to turn over a new leaf. Dustless sneered. It's okay to retaliate against him, but the key is whether there is a chance. There have been countless people who wanted to retaliate against him, and in the end, they all ended up killing themselves. Some people are destined to be someone else's chess piece. Law is such a person. It's just his wishful thinking to turn over a new leaf. The world inside the system. The void always maintained a comfortable blue, and the beautiful golden color was intoxicating. Huey G carried the little girl in her arms and strolled around the courtyard. Her brows were filled with indolent happiness and she would tease the little girl in her arms from time to time. Her appearance of being so happy that she forgot about home made people feel satisfied. The Jubi's physique was unexpectedly strong, and its recovery ability was extremely abnormal. The day after giving birth, Kagaya was able to get out of bed and walk at will, and she recovered in 2 or 3 days. This scene is rather harmonious. Dustless sighed with emotion, his tone carrying jealousy. Ling the incarnation of the system consciousness, glanced at Dustless and saw what he was thinking at a glance. She said disdainfully, "You are obviously jealous that little Ueshi can be so close to Kagaya. You are not young anymore. You have lived 3 lives and you are more than 60 years old. You are jealous like a child who has not grown up." Hearing this, Dustless's mouth twitched violently, and he smiled embarrassedly. When Linger saw through his thoughts, he couldn't help blushing. As Linger said, he was indeed jealous. That little kid stuck to Kagaya all day long. Dustless wanted to find a suitable opportunity to talk to her. After pregnancy, women will report for charity and gentleness. Such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is suitable to talk to her and promote the relationship between the two sides. Maybe he can have a beautiful night with Kaguya, but it's all taken by that little kid. The depression in Dustless's heart can be imagined. Yueshi seemed to be aware of Dustless's depression. Chapter 632. Dustless was also helpless about this. In Huey's heart, the weight of Yueshi and Dustless was a one-sided situation. If he rashly struck up a conversation, even if he didn't want to admit it, there was an 80% chance that he would be humiliating himself, and he might even be mocked by Huey. What a rare guest. What are you doing here? The water surface splashed with faint ripples, and Huey was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, gracefully arriving in front of Dustless. Unlike the past, although her calm voice was still a little cold, it was obviously different from the way she was isolated from the world in the past. Clearly, Huey's temperament had also changed. Why can't I come? No matter what, this is my territory, and the ruler is also me. Dustless heard this and asked back, black lines appearing on his forehead. If he remembered correctly, this system world was his from the beginning to the end. Dustless was particularly unhappy with Huey's tone. It was obvious that she wanted to take over the magpie's nest. Yaya. As if noticing that her mother was wronged and treated unfairly, the little girl bared her fangs and brandished her claws at Dustless. Her fierce look made Dustless directly curse. This unfilial child. Fortunately, I can jump and jump now. In the future, when I'm old and can't move, I will definitely not be able to support me. Dustless's words caused Linger and Huey G to roll their eyes and smile at each other. Dustless said so, but he still pecked Yushi's delicate little face, causing the little girl to be dissatisfied and use her white little hand to wipe her face. Seeing this scene, Dustless's lungs rolled, and he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood uncontrollably. I can temporarily use divine might to absorb you into another space, and then leave this world together. Dustless looked at Huey with a serious face, looking for an answer. Hearing this, Huey shook her head resolutely. Let's talk about it when Yushi grows up. I feel that my life is much more fulfilling than before. Saying that, Huey also pecked Yushi's face. Dustless's treatment was obviously different from hers. Little Yushi leaned closer to Huey. The corner of his mouth twitched. Dustless no longer hesitated and chose to respect Huey's decision. Little Yueshi's shining eyes were filled with longing. She couldn't wait to grow wings and go out to see the outside world, but she was ignored by Dustless and Huey. As for the other girls, Dustless also went to take a look and got the same answer. They were not very interested in the outside world. They were not the kind of people who liked to join in the fun. It was not a bad thing to gather together and talk about the memories of their youth. Dustless was anxious because he had already used various means to delay the lifespan of these confidants, but he could still vaguely see the fine wrinkles at the corners of their eyes. This meant that their lifespan was declining. Immortality. These 4 words sounded easy, but it was hard to do. Until now, Dustless also knew Law's ability, and the light fruit in his space had the ability to increase lifespan. The whole world was full of heroes, guided by the words of the pirate king Roger before his death. The number of pirates all over the world soared, and they were all yearning for the legendary treasure. The overall strength of the pirates is above the marine, but they are just scheming and killing each other, so they are not a problem. Even so, the overall strength of the marine is not much stronger. It seems that you only said this, Sengoku. Dustless asked while holding the Den Den Mushi. The person on the other side is Fleet Admiral Sengoku of the Marine Headquarters. The purpose is also very simple. Dustless's strength is obvious to all, and he hopes to use his strength to train the Marine recruits. What a joke, Dustless's own subordinates have never trained. How can he be bored enough to help Sengoku train the recruits? There is a retired Z that can do it. Could it be that this group of guys and Z had some irreconcilable conflict? Dustless secretly guessed. Z is a tragic character. He was loyal to the Marine all his life, but in the end, he died in the hands of the Marine. According to Dustless's guess, Z has already given up on the Marine, so even if he doesn't help the Marine train the recruits, it is understandable. With all due respect, your justice is too childish, I can't agree. Dustless refused. The reason why he is the so-called honorary admiral to some extent is more like a disguised transaction. If there is no benefit, Dustless will not accept this hard work. Sengoku's face turned black, And he cursed in his heart. If you don't want to help, then don't help, but insult our name of justice. Sengoku's heart is actually very bitter. The Marine has done countless shady things in the dark, and it is really not that righteous. Justice is just hanging on the mouth to fool the world. The people who really put justice in their heart are rare, such as Sakazuki is more like a butcher in the name of justice. It is not an exaggeration to say that the Marine's justice is a child's play. After some small talk, Sengoku closed the den mushi. Talking nonsense with Dustless will only make him more confused, and even his thinking will not be normal. Asking Dustless to train the Marine, the reason why Sengoku had no choice but to use this opportunity to catch Don Chinjo alive to promote Sakazuki and others to Admiral. Who would have thought that the old guy ran away halfway? In order to block the mouths of the people, Sengoku had to put this matter aside. Sengoku, this guy must have some conflict with Z, Dustless said with certainty. The Marine's current philosophy is contrary to Z's justice. Z who can't see the hope of the future is discouraged, and anything is possible. The Marine is just the surface of the world government, and in fact, they have been playing the role of a clown. Sometimes, the Marine is more like the scapegoat of the world government, and their profession is to take the blame for the Gorosei. Letting Dustless play with them, Sengoku actually thought of it. Dustless frowned. The life and death of the Marine is none of his business. He can just watch. Chapter 633. Sengoku's heart was extremely gloomy, and his face was as ugly as if he had eaten a rat. If he could, he really wanted to fight with Dustless to vent his anger. However, Dustless was in Mariehua, and he was a Tenryubito, and his strength was not weaker than him. A Marine Admiral offended him, and Fleet Admiral Sengoku couldn't get angry easily. The gloom in his heart could be imagined. Haha! You must have been defeated by Royce South again. Garp laughed unscrupulously as he walked into the office. At the same time, he quickly stuffed the shell into his mouth, which was quite cute, but Garp's eyes flashed with a cold light from time to time. Obviously, there was a deviation between the surface and what he thought. Sengoku looked at Garp with interest. He knew that the old guy was a rough and delicate person. He was actually very smart, and there were some places where he was far behind. Do you have any good ideas? Sengoku asked expectantly. Hearing this, Garp just rolled his eyes and stuffed a lot of shells into his mouth in one breath. A smile appeared on his rough face as he shook his head and said, "It's not a good idea, but fart, there is one." Puff. The air in the Fleet Admiral's office, which was still comfortable, suddenly became as smelly as a toilet. Sengoku's old face changed greatly, and he quickly opened the window for ventilation. Turning his head, he stared at Garp angrily, and his old face turned green. This old guy was getting more and more disrespectful to him as a Marine Fleet Admiral. Today it was fart. Maybe it will be even worse in the future. By the way, our Marine's justice is sometimes too childish. Garp suddenly said seriously. Sengoku's expression suddenly froze, and he wanted to refute, but he was speechless, because he understood that this was a fact, and the current situation of the Marine explained everything. On the surface, it seemed that they were united, but in fact, they were also ganging up on each other. First of all, Admiral Z was discouraged by the Marine. Even if Z didn't say it, the shrewd Sengoku could see it. Secondly, the future three admirals expressed their own opinions, and they were also divided. Sakazuki and Kuzan had serious conflicts in some areas. Although he was biased towards Kuzan's justice, he couldn't show it. As for the slick Barisari, he had been directly ignored by Sengoku. He was the most unreliable one. Well, so what? Justice will not lose to evil pirates. Sengoku said stubbornly. Although the Marine's justice is indeed not worth a few cents, but there is a saying that if you win the hearts of the people, you will win the world. The civilians of the whole world at least still support the Marine, which is also the foundation of the Marine's long-term success. Sengoku, the reason why you spent so much effort to study the humanoid weapon is also a sign of guilt. Garp stared at Sengoku's face and said straightforwardly. Perhaps it was because he was worried about the future of the Navy that he developed this killing weapon that would only obey orders. Those who do great things don't care about trifles. With a snort, Sengoku said without blushing. Dustless shook his head when he heard this. He could understand Sengoku. This may be one of the reasons why Dustless thinks that the Marine's justice is a joke. On the one hand, he talks about holy justice every day, but behind his back, there are countless crazy experiments, as well as inhumane cold orders, treating human life as grass. The two completely contradicted each other. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was child's play. East Blue, Fengche Town. Since the last time Dustless left, the whole island has returned to tranquility, but there are still bandits roaming around. As for what they do, it's also their normal work. Luffy didn't know anything about the last incident, which was also thanks to Dustless. Ace and Sabo didn't tell him because they were afraid of leaving a shadow in his heart. In the lively tavern, the Akagami, red hair, pirates drank beer and laughed. They had forgotten the pain of the past and found new companions during this period. Soon, Akagami, red hair, will choose to return to the new world. This time, the tavern is equivalent to a farewell drink for everyone. During this period, the rubber fruit that Shanks brought to the new world was also eaten by Luffy by mistake and became a landlubber who couldn't swim. Shanks could only smile bitterly. This is the last time we meet, Luffy. Rubbing Luffy's hair, Shanks smiled generously. Luffy nodded disappointedly, his eyes were full of reluctance, then he raised his fist and shouted, "I will also become a world-famous pirate in the future." It was still a short time, but Shanks' brainwashing and talking skills were done well. Luffy was fooled and full of yearning for the magnificent sea. "That's the best. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in the new world in the future." Shanks was pleased to see this. "In the future, I'll go? You don't need to go. Pirates value teamwork. All of you stay here. Isn't it a teamwork to be buried with me?" Luffy's immature voice suddenly deepened, like the whisper of a devil, filling the ears of red-haired Shanks. Immediately, his pupils changed strangely, flashing with a demonic bloody light. Luffy's whole body floated with a faint bloody light, and it was extremely gloomy. Because it was too evil, the entire tavern fainted in an instant. The only ones who could remain conscious were Red Hair Shanks and his crew. "What? Haven't you recognized your old friend? Ah, it's really disappointing. In order to meet an old friend who hasn't seen me for a long time, I deliberately used the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, hoping to maintain this state for a while, but you forgot who I am." Luffy's eyes turned into Scarlet Sharingan, which was extremely strange, and the corners of his mouth were raised. With the flashing red light, he was no different from a demon coming out of hell to take people's lives. The transcription seal, that Dustless hid in Luffy's eye sockets, was finally activated. It's just that Luffy doesn't have Sharingan, and only God knows how long it can last, but for Dustless, it's enough time. Chapter 634. Red Hair Shanks's face changed greatly. This voice seemed to be full of indifference to all life. He could not forget it at all times and had always remembered it in his heart. The former crew members of the Akagami, Red Hair, pirates were all killed by the owner of this voice. "Ah, it seems that you finally remember me, Shanks." Luffy laughed casually. His words were filled with frivolity. Combined with his frivolous action of scratching his head, it was completely different from the usual Luffy. Especially those red eyes that were emitting a red light that could devour people. They were filled with an indescribable pressure. These strange eyes are the nightmare of the entire crew of the Akagami, Red Hair Pirates, and they will never let it go. It has already left an indelible mark in their hearts. There is no doubt that at this moment, Dustless's consciousness replaced Luffy's. The Akagami, Red Hair pirates who had interacted with Dustless were nervous and looked at the 7- or 8-year-old Luffy. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive for a moment, and the air froze in an instant, and there was even a suffocating danger. "Who are you?" Coincidentally, at this moment, a puzzled voice suddenly resounded. The man with a long gun suddenly took a few steps forward and was close to Luffy, looking at the flashing red eyes with interest and fear in his heart. "Get out of here, bastard. Trash like you is even worse than those notorious pirates." Raising his eyelids, Dustless's voice was as cold as frost. "For people like Jesuit, Dustless hates them the most. What did you say? Apologize to me immediately." Hearing this, Jesuit's face changed greatly, and the muzzle was almost instantly aimed at Luffy, staring at him angrily. No one can be relieved when they are called trash and bastard. If Luffy was not a child, he would have shot him immediately. "Stop, Jesuit. He is no longer Luffy, and Luffy's consciousness has been replaced by someone else." Red Hair Shanks said hoarsely. The western sword was already in his hand, and he was on guard against Dustless's every move. Jezeb was taken aback when he heard that. Just as he was about to retract his gun, Luffy's tender body leaped up in a strange manner. His movements were smooth and fluid, and his powerful little foot kicked mercilessly at Jezeb's face. Bang! Jesus Boo, who was caught off guard, was sent flying and crashed into a big tree. Trash like you is worse than scum. Staying here will only pollute the air. Dustless's crimson eyes were filled with disgust. His tone was mechanical and emotionless. Dustless hated selfish people like Jezeb the most. For his so-called dream, he abandoned his wife and children to become a pirate. Even when his wife died, he didn't look back. Dustless could not sacrifice his own family members to realize his dreams. Even if he was cold-blooded, he could not do it. It is undeniable that pirates do pursue freedom and like to take risks. But this is based on the pain of others. Red Hair Shanks is actually a bloodthirsty butcher, and the position of a Yonko, for emperors, was stepped on the bodies of other pirates. This newly joined Jezeb is no exception. He abandoned his wife and children, and when his wife was dying, he didn't look back. Now he has to pretend to be righteous. Chapter 635. The world's most evil person, the world's most despicable and shameless person? Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but smile. Controlling Luffy's body, he couldn't help but shake his head. He didn't know when he started to have a messy reputation. Maybe he really is the world's most evil person, but so what? The winner is praised and the loser is despised. Especially in this troubled world where pirates are rampant, being despicable and shameless is also another way to make a living. As long as you can survive, being despicable and shameless is a kind of wisdom. Hee hee. It's because I'm despicable and shameless that I can jump until now and often disgusted you. It's because you pirates like to be a bitch and set up a monument, like to play with justice and dreams, that's why you're hated by everyone. Dustless laughed. Good people don't live long. Evil people live forever. This is the truth summed up by the ancient sages. If you can live with a person you like, even if you are the most evil person, so what? Hearing this, Red Hair Shanks' old face twitched, but he was speechless because Dustless was telling the truth. He was despicable enough, so he always laughed at the red hair pirates from the perspective of the winner. Dustless's method of controlling Luffy is despicable enough. There is no doubt that he is the final winner. Thinking of this, Red Hair Shanks' old face turned green. The heavens are watching what man does. There are gods 3 feet above our heads. Good and evil will be decided by the heavens. With red eyes, the red-haired Shanks clenched his fists and said hatefully through gritted teeth. It's ridiculous self-deception again, Shanks. Sometimes I really think you are a naive kid. Now in this world, I cover the sky with one hand. I deceive God's eyes, the so-called God's ears are covered. Good and evil are decided by me. Hearing this, Dustless suddenly retorted, then pointed to the void and chuckled. Don't you think it's ridiculous? No, you can ask God and see if he agrees with you. Dustless sneered. He could clearly see Red Hair Shanks complaining about his fate. Perhaps the current Dustless was sent by God to make things difficult for him. Thus, he felt that the world was unfair. In reality, the heavenly Tao was fair, but Dustless cheated and cheated. Ridiculous. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head as he looked at the expressions of the Akagami, red hair pirates. He could clearly see the fear and resentment in these people's eyes. They wished they could beat him up, but there was nothing they could do. Even if they killed Luffy, they wouldn't be able to shake Dustless. What is your purpose? Don't get carried away. With a cold glint in his eyes, the red-haired Shanks warned, kindly. Dustless just waved his hand carelessly. So what if the villain was intoxicated with success? If he could keep looking at the red-haired Shanks being humiliated, Wuxia didn't mind showing off all the time. It's also an honor to be able to anger a Yonko, for emperors, standing at the top of the pyramid. It's not too much to joke with an old friend. We have fought several times and we are old friends. It's just that every time I beat you up. I'm sorry. Next time I will be merciful. At least I will leave you some self-esteem so that you won't be as miserable as you are now. Dustless nodded. Kill this bastard. The crew of the Akagami, Red Hair, Pirates finally couldn't stand Dustless's sarcasm and stood up to propose to kill him directly. The implication was to kill Luffy together. After all, Dustless is now occupying his body. Just by you? Unless I completely exhaust chakra, no other method will work. If you don't believe me, just try it. Wu Chen controlled Luffy's tender body to look at this group of people. His every movement contained an unprecedented calmness. Don't worry, Luffy. Don't worry. How can a normal human be angry with a clown for fun? Red Hair Shanks's eyes flickered and sometimes shot a light that was enough to devour everything. He stared at Luffy and seemed to hesitate whether to kill him or not. The Navy meets the Sea Thieves. Justice meets evil. Two diametrically opposed forces come into contact with each other. What do you think will happen other than a war? Wu Chen asked with a smile. Red Hair Shanks's tight face showed a sneer. Although the crew today is not as good as before, they are all elites. Armament hockey and observation hockey are all elites. It is tantamount to a dream to suddenly attack and kill them. The war I'm talking about is not the kind where you fight back and forth, it's just unilateral annihilation. Dustless's smiling face solidified. His voice suddenly became low, full of cold chill, and the eyes in his eyes were spinning wildly. Bursts of evil red light came out, and Luffy's whole body was covered with a bloody halo. Everyone, pay attention, this guy. Seeing his eyes spinning strangely, Red Hair Shanks quickly shouted, knowing that Dustless was going to attack, but it was too late. Tsukuyomi! The red hair pirates who saw Dustless's eyes were almost instantly wiped out and fell to the ground powerlessly. Their faces were as pale as paper, and their expressions were faintly filled with horror and boundless fear. Ah! As expected of Yonko, 4 emperors, Red Hair Shanks, he still has consciousness. Dustless's calm voice splashed with ripples, and he was quite surprised. Ravaged by Tsukuyomi, Red Hair Shanks just fell to the ground and then slowly stood up. Obviously, his willpower was abnormally strong. At the same time, Dustless's voice also lowered. This blow almost used up all the chakra he hid in Luffy's eyes. Hee. You are also a lamp that has run out of oil. Red Hair Shanks said with a tone of relief. However, Dustless smiled strangely. He had considered all the unfavorable factors before. It was indeed impossible to directly kill all the members of Red Hair Pirates with Tsukuyomi. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, messy footsteps and shouts suddenly came from outside the tavern. The final protagonist has finally appeared. Chapter 636. Noticing the messy footsteps outside the tavern, Red-haired Shanks's face changed drastically. Normally, he wouldn't care about some small fries, but now things are different. Attacked by Dustless Tsukuyomi, he was like a swaying willow branch in the wind and rain. He could only go with the flow without any resistance. He was extremely weak. Red-haired Shanks, who used to be majestic, was now at the mercy of others. Even if it was a child with a sword, there was a chance that his life would be taken. Don't think that everyone is as dark as you. Maybe that group of people is just passing by. Passing by? I'm afraid you can't even fool yourself with this kind of deceit. Shaking his head, Dustless immediately interrupted Shanks with a disdainful tone. At this time, he was still imagining the development of the situation in his own direction. I can tell you that the group of people who are causing trouble outside, not only have you seen them, but you seem to be very familiar with them. Dustless's tone suddenly became a little more playful and obviously gloating. You have shown your power to those guys before. Last time when they robbed Windcar Town, it was you who helped them out. They are a group of bandits, and their leader seems to be called Sieg. Hearing this, red-haired Shanks' face suddenly became gloomy and murderous. Sieg? He naturally has an impression of him. When he stayed in Windcar Town for a while, Sieg came to Windcar Town to rob, but he was beaten up by the red-haired pirates and all the bandits were annihilated except for Sieg himself. Of course, Sieg deliberately let him go. Red-haired Shanks' idea at the time was very simple. He was just a small character, and there was no need to kill him. Besides, he was not that kind of person. He didn't expect that the one who came to cause trouble today was that kid. An unprecedented sense of regret quietly spread in his heart. If he could have killed Sieg directly, there wouldn't be such a scene now. Did you plan all this in advance? You despicable guy! Red-haired Shanks roared with all his strength as his eyes locked on Dustless. It seemed that this was the only way he could vent his suppressed emotions and calm himself down so that he could find a good strategy to defeat the enemy. Since you said that I am the evilest person in the world. So what if I'm despicable and shameless? The winner is still me. The Yonko, 4 emperors, may be killed by a bandit with a bounty of 8 million berries. This news must be very exciting. Dustless chuckled indifferently. Sizing up the red-haired Shanks, Dustless' interest was piqued. He smiled and said, "Actually, it's not like there's no way to survive. Lower your self-esteem and become in your dreams." As if he had expected what Dustless was going to say, Shank immediately refuted him. Pirates are a group of people who advocate freedom. Asking him to be Dustless's subordinate is tantamount to a fool's dream. A mad dog driven mad is scary enough. But I suddenly feel that a mad red-haired Shanks is even scarier, because he's capable of doing anything. Chapter 637. In a trance, Red Hair Shanks seemed to see Dustless's disappointment after his plot failed. Red Hair Shanks smiled triumphantly. It was a great comfort for him to be able to turn the tables. Always being suppressed and beaten violently, even an Iron Man will leave a psychological shadow. I should have told you before, don't have any naive thoughts. Look at you now. Dustless shook his head and sighed hopelessly. Red-haired Shanks had apparently entered into his wild imagination again. After many years of scheming, Dustless has become accustomed to accidents. You're on your own. Glancing at the red-haired Shanks, the chakra left by Dustless in Luffy's body was completely consumed. Luffy also lost consciousness and fell to the ground, falling into a coma. Boom! The entire tavern collapsed in an instant and turned into a pile of ruins, burying Akagami, Red Hair, pirates in it. As for the ordinary civilians, they were smashed into flesh and blood in an instant. People are selfish. Since Akagami, Red Hair, wants him and his companions to live, he can only do this. As for those innocent people who were implicated, at most, he will kill Dustless in the future to avenge them. Give me an inch and I'll take a mile. Mariehua's Dustless body sneered again and again. He likes to clean up people who think they can't do anything. God treats everyone fairly, and Red Hair Shanks has no protagonist aura to break out. On the contrary, Dustless's flames are enough to cover and burn the whole world, and the first unlucky one is Mariehua. To be exact, White Zetsu and Hancock are now under the same roof as Dustless. Both of them trembled in fear and didn't dare to look up. White Zetsu, who knows Dustless's nature, knows that he won't kill his own people. On the other hand, Hancock's pretty face is pale and full of fear. It's no wonder that it's the first time she has seen Dustless's murderous look, and it's normal for her to be afraid. Your doppelganger is still in Windmill Town, right? Even if you can't get rid of Red Hair's group, you can at least make them suffer, Dustless said as he stared coldly at White Zetsu. White Zetsu immediately nodded when he heard that, indicating that there was no problem. Red Hair Shanks at his peak was definitely not a match for him, even if there were 100 of him stacked together. However, Red Hair had already been tricked by Dustless's Tsukuyami, making it much easier to deal with him. Idiot, of all people to offend, you just had to offend Lord Dustless. In his heart, he couldn't help but curse Red Hair for being brainless. After so many lessons, that kid didn't seem to have grown any wisdom. This was the result of fighting Dustless. If White Zetsu was Red Hair, he would definitely hide in the mountains. Dreams had to be realized with a life. After a moment of silence, Dustless gave a few more instructions. Then Baiju left. Master, Sister Otoheim just came back. She seems to be very tired and is now resting. Seeing White Zetsu leave, Hancock said softly. Dustless nodded slightly, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. Otoheim came back, indicating that the task given to her was a fruitful one. Then his face was a little guilty. Thinking of his rudeness to Princess Otoheim in the past, Dustless's face was apologetic. He was cold, but he would treat those who sincerely supported him sincerely. He was indeed a little ruthless to Otoheim in the past. In the dead of night, the lights of the entire Mariehua gradually went out. In the dark corridor, Dustless walked. He was used to the darkness, and there was no difference between night and half a day. After several turns, he came to the room where Otoheim slept peacefully. Looking as far as he could, His line of sight passed through the red silk curtain. Otoheim fell asleep and was about to step in. Dustless's eyes flashed with hesitation. Thinking of Otoheim's fatigue, he turned and left. Coming here late at night without saying anything, you shouldn't be bored enough to spy on me sleeping. A light voice with a little complaint sounded in his ears. Dustless was stunned and then turned around. His face was very unnatural. To be honest, he didn't have any extra thoughts. He just wanted to see how Otoheim was doing recently. I don't have a heart of stone as you think. Dustless wondered. Otoheim smiled when she heard this. She knew that Dustless was telling the truth. Although he was barbaric and rude to her before, Dustless is indeed gentler than before. Then again, Whitebeard, that ambitious guy, may really have a possessive desire for the ancient weapons Sea King. Since the last battle with Bigu's mom, the number of Whitebeard pirates in Fishman Island has increased a lot. Princess Otoheim said cautiously. After tidying up her clothes, Princess Aji's watery eyes couldn't help but darken. She didn't mind that her perfect curves were completely exposed. Everything about her was occupied by Wu Chen for his own use. Covering up would only increase the ridicule. Of course. Otherwise, why do you think Whitebeard is protecting the Fishmen Island and showing mercy? Wu Chen said calmly, as if this was how it should be. In fact, Whitebeard and Dustless have the same purpose. They are both going for the ancient weapon. The source of the news is naturally One Piece and his best friend Roger. It's all your fault. I heard Hancock say that you used the dark fruit to plot against Bigu's mom and Whitebeard and provoked a war between them. Whitebeard, who realized his shortcomings, had other ideas. At this point, Otoheim's resentment was more than enough. At the same time, her view of Whitebeard was also very different. She was grateful to him for sheltering Fishman Island, but she didn't expect his real purpose to be the ancient weapon. Although it was Wu Chen who forced Whitebeard into a desperate situation, it also showed that a tiger on the verge of desperation could do any crazy thing. You should thank me for letting you see the essence of Whitebeard. Otherwise, your Fishman Island would still be in the dark. Dustless laughed and peeked at Otoheim, showing an expression that you should thank me. Otoheim stared at Dustless and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy is really shameless, but she has to admit that this is a fact. She gave a big white eye to Dustless and then pulled him into the room. Chapter 638. Every minute of the spring night was worth 1,000 gold, and the beautiful scenery was naturally not worth mentioning. When Dustless and Otoheim got up, it was already late in the morning. Under Hancock's care, Dustless lazily got up from the bed. Everything was handed over to his subordinates, and he was unusually free. Sometimes he strolled around the slave auction house, or went back to the system world to tease Little Moon Shi. Although life was boring and monotonous, it was also full of other kinds of fun. In short, although life was different from what he imagined, Dustless did not feel bored. By the way, why did you push me to the position of the king of the Fishmen Island? When eating, Otoheim asked puzzledly. A while ago, Dustless secretly sent her back to the Fishmen Island, in fact, to inherit the position of king of the Fishmen Island. As for King Neptune, Dustless had already reconciled him with other means. The one who killed him was the power of Dustless in Shirahoshi's body. Although it was not strong, it was more than enough to kill Neptune. After learning the news, Otoheim almost collapsed in despair. Persuasion was useless, so she had to use her eyes to temporarily seal her painful memory. Time was the best elixir. Over time it would gradually fade. As for Neptune's death, Wu Chen could only apologize. A man of great ambition would not care about trifles. Some people who shouldn't exist, even if they were innocent, must be eliminated. The Fishmen Island is the only way to enter the New World. Otherwise you will have to cross the Yellow Earth to enter the second half of the New World. The geographical location is extremely important, and there are ancient weapons, and the existence of the Poneglyph. I need a reliable person to sit there as the king. Dustless said bluntly. The reason why he erased Neptune was that this old guy was flirting with Whitebeard all day long. Just in case, Dustless directly killed him. If his position was unknown, he was an enemy, and the enemy naturally could only be killed. Although he felt sorry for Otoheim, Dustless still killed him. Since he had already cuckolded Neptune, it was a relief to send him to heaven. Princess Aji nodded. She was confident in the position of Fishman Island's king. With Dustless as her backer, she could build her own ideal kingdom. Why was the Fishman Island bullied in the past? Because his background wasn't strong enough. Why wasn't his background strong enough? Because the Fishman Island has no value, even the value of being used has no value. Now Otoheim naturally cannot let go of Dustless, this big ship. Seize the right time, the Fishman Island can restore the past glory. At this moment, a different scene was playing out in Windmill Town. This damn bastard. He can actually take a beating. White Zoo's mouth twitched. At that moment, red-haired Shanks, who was facing him, was already covered in blood. She just made a face at Dustless, then jumped 3 feet high and landed heavily on Dustless's abdomen. Wu Chen hurriedly caught her. This mischievous brat knew how to torment people more than anyone else. The reason why he brought her out of the system world was that this little brat had been pestering Huey G every day. Huey G, who loved her dearly, couldn't bear to reject her. She was her flesh and blood, so she naturally didn't want her daughter to be wronged. Since Kagaya had spoken, Dustless naturally brought Yushi to see the outside world. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.